What if the most dangerous person in the room is not the narcissist, not the manipulator, not the obvious villain, but the empath who has finally healed? Not dangerous in the sense of cruel or abusive. Dangerous in the sense that you can't control them anymore. You can't guilt them, you can't drain them, you can't hide from yourself in their endless compassion. They see you, and they see themselves just as clearly. Carl Jung warned that real healing is not about becoming more good. It's about becoming whole. And that is the uncomfortable truth. A healed empath does not become a softer, nicer version of what they were. They become something far more unsettling. A person who knows their own darkness, can hold your darkness, and still refuses to sacrifice themselves to save you from it. In this video, we are going to explore what an empath really is from a Jungian perspective. Why so many empaths are actually wounded people pleasers, not mystic saints. The brutal shadow work a true empath must go through. How healed empaths stop being emotional sponges and become mirrors. Why they suddenly look cold, selfish, or even arrogant to others. And finally, what a healed empath really becomes, according to Carl Jung's deepest insights about the psyche. Stay with this until the end if you've always been too sensitive. You attract broken people and then lose yourself trying to save them. Or you in the middle of healing and you feel yourself becoming someone you don't fully recognize. Because the person you becoming might not be who the world expects an empath to be, but it is who Jung would say you were always meant to become. Let's begin. Before we talk about the healed empath, we need to be brutally honest about where most empaths actually begin. When people say, I'm an empath, they usually mean, I feel everything too deeply. I can sense what people feel, even when they don't say it. I absorb other people's pain. From a Jungian perspective, that's not automatically some kind of mystical gift. It can be, but often, it's also a trauma adaptation, empathy or survival strategy. Many so-called empaths grew up in environments where being hyper-attuned to others was necessary. A volatile parent whose mood you had to read to stay safe. A depressed caregiver you tried to emotionally rescue. A family where your needs were ignored, so you learned to focus only on others. You didn't just develop empathy. You developed radar. You learned to scan. Is everyone okay? Is anyone angry? Did I do something wrong? Do I need to fix this before it explodes? Psychology calls this fawning, people-pleasing, codependence. Jung would say, your persona, the mask you wear to survive, became the good, kind, endlessly giving one. And you attached your identity to that mask. The Jungian trap of the good empath. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Jung warned that anything we insist on seeing as purely good in ourselves usually has a shadow, all the rejected opposites hidden in the unconscious. So when your conscious identity is, I am the kind one, the understanding one, the forgiving one, the empathic one, what gets pushed into your shadow? Your anger, your resentment, your selfish needs, your desire to be seen, prioritized, chosen, your wish to not care for once. You bury that. You swallow it. You smile instead. On the surface, you look emotionally mature. Inside, you're quietly bleeding out. The wounded empath pattern. The wounded empath tends to live in a repeating loop. You sense someone as pain. You rush in, often uninvited, to help, fix, soothe. You overextend time, energy, money, emotional availability. The other person improves a bit, but doesn't truly change. They pull away, take advantage, or even resent you. You feel abandoned, unseen, used, a victim. You conclude, people are so selfish. I just care too much. From the outside, you look like a saint. From the inside, Jung would say you caught in an unconscious complex, a pattern of behavior driven by buried wounds. You are not just helping. You are unconsciously recreating your original pain. I will love you the way no one loved me, and if you finally love me back, maybe I'll be enough. Empathy without a self. Jung's process of individuation is about becoming a whole, distinct self, not dissolving into others. But the wounded empath often has a very weak sense of self. Ask them, what do you want? What do you feel? What do you like? Many can't answer clearly. They define themselves by who they help, who they are with, who they are trying to heal. This is where Jung would say, you are identified with your persona. You are the helper, the healer, the empath, not a full, contradictory, complex human being. The cost of staying wounded. As long as you stay in this pattern, you'll keep attracting people who are happy to receive without truly reciprocating. You'll confuse overgiving with love. You'll secretly resent the very people you're trying to save. You'll feel morally superior but emotionally exhausted. And you'll call it being an empath. But Jung's uncomfortable truth is this: you are not embodying higher love. You are avoiding your own shadow. To become a healed empath, you don't double down on being nice. You go in the opposite direction. You turn toward the traits you've tried your entire life to deny. That's where we go next. Jung famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." For the empath, that darkness is not just the suffering of others. It's your own repressed, uncomfortable truths about why you care so much. The hidden motives of overgiving. This is confronting, but necessary. Sometimes you overgive because you want to feel indispensable. You're afraid of being abandoned. You want control. If they rely on you, they won't leave. You feel morally superior when you're the good one. On the surface, you're selfless. Underneath, there can be very human, very imperfect motivations. Jung would say, these live in your shadow, the part of you refuse to see. Healing means you no longer get to pretend, I just care more than other people. You have to admit, I also care because it gives me identity, security, importance, and safety. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you honest. Owning your anger. Most empaths hate their own anger. They find excuses for everyone. They're wounded. They don't know any better. I understand why they did that. You defend everyone except yourself. But suppressed anger doesn't disappear. It leaks out as passive aggression, silent resentment, exhaustion and burnout, psychosomatic symptoms, headaches, stomach issues, body tension, sudden explosive outbursts you later regret. Jung believed that until you integrate your aggressive energy consciously, it will control you from the shadows. For the empath, shadow work means saying, I am angry they treated me this way. I do feel used. I do sometimes hate being the strong one. And letting that be true. Not spiritualizing it away. Not forgiving it before you've even fully felt it. The good person persona cracks. When you start doing shadow work, something unnerving happens. Your identity as the good, kind, endlessly understanding person begins to fracture. You realize you can be caring and controlling. You can be loving and secretly resentful. You can be empathic and manipulative. You can help and be doing it to fill a void. This is where many empaths back away from healing. They don't want to see this. But Jung would say, if you avoid the shadow, you avoid real transformation. Because the goal is not to prove that you are only light. The goal is to become whole, light and dark, love and rage, care and self-interest. Projection, how you lose yourself in others. Another uncomfortable Jungian insight. What you do not want to see in yourself, you will often idolize in others. You may be drawn to strong, confident, even narcissistic personalities. People who are openly selfish or unapologetic. Partners who are emotionally unavailable because they carry the traits you suppress. You empathize with them while secretly longing to have their boundaries, their self-focus, their unapologetic no. You project your buried power onto them. You remain the soft one, the understanding one. Shadow work means you stop romanticizing people who treat you badly. You stop saying, they're just hurt, and you start acknowledging, they are also choosing not to grow. And I keep choosing them because I don't want to carry my own power. Grieving your old self. Here's a part no one talks about. To heal as an empath, you will grieve. You will grieve the version of you that was always available. The role of savior that made you feel special. The relationships that existed only because you were overgiving. The fantasy that if you just love enough, others will finally become who you need them to be. Jung's process of individuation always involves some form of symbolic death. The old self, the persona, must crack so something deeper can emerge. So if you feel like you're losing yourself as you heal, you might actually be losing a false self. The real you is waiting on the other side of that death. And that real you does empathy very differently. Once an empath begins integrating their shadow, something shifts that terrifies their old life. They start saying no. Not just to obvious abuse, but to emotional dumping. One-sided friendships. Relationships where they are the permanent therapist. workplaces that exploit their reliability, family dynamics built on guilt and obligation. From the outside, this looks like selfishness. From a Jungian lens, this is the birth of a real self. Why boundaries feel so wrong at first. If your identity has been the one who is always there, then setting boundaries feels like violence. Your nervous system fires off alarms. I'm abandoning them. I'm becoming like the people who hurt me. They'll hate me. In Jungian terms, you are moving away from your inflamed persona, the helper, the healer, and closer to your authentic self, which has limits, preferences, and needs. But the body doesn't know that yet. It only knows, this is new. New is dangerous. So you'll be tempted to go back, to apologize for your boundaries, to over-explain, to compromise them at the slightest pushback. This is the test. People who benefited from your wounds will resist your healing. Here is one of the most uncomfortable truths. The people who loved your lack of boundaries will not love your boundaries. You will be called cold, rude, difficult, selfish, not like you used to be. You will be told, you've changed. And the terrible part is, they're right. You have changed. From Jung's perspective, you are withdrawing a projection. You are no longer willing to play the role of endless caregiver, emotional sponge, or unpaid therapist. You are taking your life force back. Anyone who is invested in the old pattern will feel threatened, because your healing exposes their dependence on your self-abandonment. The moral confusion of a healed empath. At this stage, many empaths feel morally conflicted. Questions arise like, am I becoming narcissistic? Am I hardening my heart? Isn't empathy about being there no matter what? But real empathy includes you. If your compassion excludes yourself, it is not empathy, it's neglect. Jung would say, previously, you were identified with an archetypal role, the caregiver, the savior. Now you are coming into relationship with the self, the center of your psyche that holds both your care for others and your responsibility to yourself. From the outside, this may look like reduced empathy. In reality, it's upgraded empathy, with discernment. From nice to authentic. Nice says, it's fine. When it's not, don't worry about it. When you do worry, I understand. When you actually feel hurt. Authentic says, that hurt me. I can't do that for you. I love you, and I still need this boundary. The healed empath stops performing nice and starts practicing truth. This is deeply Jungian. Individuation demands that you live from your inner truth, not just from outer expectations. Nice keeps the peace. Authentic sometimes breaks it, in service of something more real. You become the problem in other people's stories. As you stop absorbing everyone else's emotional chaos, you will notice a pattern. You become the villain in certain narratives. You'll hear, ever since they started working on themselves, they think they're better than us. They used to be so caring, now they're so distant. They're so negative now, always talking about boundaries and trauma. Jung talked about projection, how people throw their own shadow onto others. As a healed empath, when you say no, people project their inner entitlement onto you and call you selfish. When you tell the truth, they project their own discomfort with truth and call you harsh. When you step back, they project their own fear of abandonment and call you cold. This is painful, but it is also proof. You are no longer the container for everyone's unhealed parts. You are stepping out of their unconscious drama and stepping into your own life. The biggest energetic shift of a healed empath can be summed up simply. You stop being an emotional sponge and you become a psychological mirror. The old way, absorbing everything. Before healing, you walk into a room and immediately feel the tension. Take responsibility for everyone's bad mood. Soften yourself, crack jokes, comfort people, overfunction. Leave feeling drained, heavy, sometimes even sick. Your body is like an open field with no fences. Anyone's feelings can fall into it. Jung might say, your boundaries between your own unconscious and the collective unconscious are too thin. You do not clearly separate mine from not mine. So you mistake others' shame as your inadequacy, others' anger as your guilt, others' emptiness as your duty. The new way, reflecting, not absorbing. A healed empath starts asking a simple but radical question. Is this actually mine? When you feel a sudden wave of shame, anxiety, or heaviness, you pause. Did I do something wrong? Or am I just picking up something in the field? Instead of unconsciously absorbing it, you observe it. This is where Jung's concept of the observing self or the development of consciousness comes in. You are no longer fused with every sensation and emotion. You have an inner center that notices. From this place, you can stay grounded while others are in chaos. Hear someone's story without automatically jumping in to fix. Offer insight, if asked, without attachment. See patterns without trying to rescue the person from them. You function less like a sponge and more like a clear mirror. And here's the twist. Mirrors make people see themselves. Not everyone likes that. Why healed empaths trigger people? When you stop absorbing and start reflecting, you become strangely triggering. Your calmness exposes other people's chaos. Your boundaries expose their entitlement. Your self-respect exposes their self-neglect. You're no longer cushioning them from their own consequences. In Jungian terms, you are refusing the role of container for other people's unconscious material. They now have to face it directly. So they may say things like, "You're so detached now. You don't care like you used to. You're too logical, not emotional enough." What they often mean is, "You're not drowning with me anymore, and that makes me feel my own pain more clearly." Empathy with discernment. Healed empathy sounds like, "I see you're suffering. I care. Here's what I can do, and here's what I can't. I love you, but your healing is your responsibility. I understand why you're this way, but I won't let that justify you hurting me." This is empathy combined with boundaries and clarity. You no longer confuse understanding with tolerating anything, compassion with self-sacrifice, love with self-erasure. Jung's individuation demands this balance. You are part of the human collective and a distinct individual with your own path. The end of the savior complex. A major transformation happens here. You stop wanting to be the savior. You realize you can't force insight on anyone. You can't heal someone who is committed to their wounds. You can't love someone into maturity. You can't carry someone who refuses to walk. So you step back, not with bitterness, but with clarity. "I believe in your capacity to heal, but I will not destroy myself proving it to you." This is deeply uncomfortable at first, especially if your worth was built on being needed. But it opens a new space. You finally have energy for your own life, your own growth, your own purpose. And that leads to an even more unsettling shift. Jung said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." For the empath, hell is often their own anger, power, and capacity for destruction. Integrating your aggression. To be clear, integration is not acting out your aggression. It's becoming conscious of it, owning that it exists, and directing it responsibly. A healed empath recognizes, "I do have the capacity to hurt people. I can walk away and let people face consequences. I can say words that cut when I'm pushed too far." Instead of denying this, you accept, "I am not pure light. I am a human being capable of both deep care and deep harm." Why is this important? Because when you deny your aggression, it doesn't vanish. It acts from a shadow. You stay too long, then explode. You sabotage yourself instead of setting direct boundaries. You comply outwardly but resent inwardly. When you integrate it, you can say, "No, stop. This is unacceptable. I'm leaving." Calmly, clearly, early. Your anger becomes a guardian of your values, not a weapon of revenge, becoming dangerous in a different way. At this stage, the empath becomes dangerous, not because they intend harm, but because they are no longer easily controlled. You become dangerous to manipulators who rely on guilt, narcissists who rely on endless second chances, systems, families, workplaces, communities that depend on quiet overfunctioners, old versions of yourself that depended on being needed. You are now capable of walking away from relationships that drain you, leaving jobs that exploit you, refusing to play family roles that cost you your sanity, setting boundaries even if it breaks the illusion of being the good one. This is Jung's shadow energy put in service of the self. You have integrated your potential for destruction into constructive action. You destroy old patterns, unhealthy bonds, false selves, addictions to being the savior, so that something truer can live. Authority, leadership, and not hiding anymore. Many empaths hide behind others, supporting roles, assistant positions, behind the scenes emotional laborious. They avoid leadership because they hate conflict. They don't want to be perceived as bossy or controlling. They're used to amplifying others, not themselves. A healed empath, having integrated their power, can step into authority. Not arrogant, ego-driven authority, but grounded presence. This is what I know. This is what I'm here to do. This is what I will and won't accept. Jung would say, you are now living more from the self than from persona or shadow. You are willing to be seen, with your light and your darkness, and take responsibility for your impact. This may look like starting a project or business you used to only dream about, becoming a therapist, coach, artist, or leader with strong ethical boundaries, refusing to carry everyone's emotions while you carry out your work, using your empathy strategically instead of indiscriminately, losing the need to be good. The most surprising shift, you stop trying so hard to be good, not because you become immoral, but because you realize good is often a social costume. Good girls don't get angry. Good sons or daughters always say yes. Good partners tolerate anything because they understand. You trade the need to be good for the commitment to be true. Sometimes your truth will look gentle and soft. Sometimes it will look fierce and firm. But it's real. And real is what Jung's individuation demands, even when it makes others uncomfortable. This brings us to the final question. If you're no longer the wounded empath, no longer the savior, no longer the emotional sponge, what do you actually become? By Jungian standards, a healed empath is not someone who just feels a lot and suffers less. They are someone who has moved significantly along the path of individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated, unique individual. Let's sketch what that actually looks like. 1. Emotionally sovereign. You still feel deeply, but you are no longer ruled by what you feel. You notice emotional waves without drowning in them. You can sit with someone's pain without immediately fixing it. You no longer need everyone around you to be okay for you to be okay. You develop inner ground. Jung might say, you are more rooted in the self than in external circumstances. 2. Empathic, but selective. You don't turn off your empathy. You aim it. You ask, is this mine to carry? Is this person taking responsibility for themselves? Is my involvement genuinely helpful, or am I enabling? You choose where to invest your emotional energy, just as you would choose where to invest your money. You realize empathy is a resource, not a bottomless well. 3. In relationship with your shadow. Of course, there's a piece of me that wants to give up and isolate. And instead of judging those parts, you own them and make conscious choices. This is shadow integration. You feel responsible for your inner world, not ashamed of it. 4. Capable of real intimacy. Before healing, intimacy often meant fusing with others' emotions, reading their needs before they speak, earning love by overgiving. After healing, intimacy becomes two separate people, both whole, both responsible for themselves. Clear communication instead of mind reading. Mutual care instead of rescue missions. You are no longer terrified of being alone, so you can choose relationships out of desire, not desperation. Jung would say, you're relating self to self, not persona to persona or wound to wound. 5. Creative and purpose-driven. A healed empath has a lot of energy that used to be spent managing other people's moods, playing emotional firefighter, spinning in internal conflict. When that energy returns to you, it naturally wants expression. You may find yourself creating art, writing, music, content, starting projects, businesses, communities, stepping into healing or service roles with strong boundaries, bringing more depth into whatever work you already do. Jung saw individuation as deeply tied to creativity. As you become more yourself, you must express that self in some way. 6. Less attached to the label empath. Here is a strange but telling sign of healing. You may stop needing the word empath so much, not because it's wrong, but because you don't need it for identity. You may simply feel like, I am a human being who feels deeply, who has done a lot of inner work, who values connection and truth. You become less invested in any label, empath, healer, old soul, and more invested in living your actual life. This is pure Jung. Individuation is about being you, not about being the perfect embodiment of an archetype. 7. A conduit of real, grounded compassion. Finally, what does your empathy look like now? It's calmer, less dramatic, more honest. You can sit with someone's tears without needing to stop them. You can witness someone's self-destruction and still say, "I love you, and I will not join you in harming yourself." Your love becomes less about sacrificing yourself and more about honoring truth. Truth about who they are. Truth about who you are. Truth about what's actually possible between you. Jung's uncomfortable truth is that real healing doesn't make you nicer. It makes you truer, more whole, more human. And a healed empath is exactly that. Not an angel, not a martyr, not a savior. A human being who has walked into their own depths and returned with enough self-knowledge to finally live. If you've made it this far, you might feel a mixture of relief and discomfort. Relief because something in this probably resonated. The exhaustion of overgiving. The anger you weren't supposed to feel. The confusion of becoming less nice but somehow more you. And discomfort because this path asks a lot. Letting old identities die. Losing people who only loved your wounds. Owning parts of you that you were taught were bad. But if Carl Jung were sitting across from you, he would likely say, this tension, this conflict between who you've been and who you're becoming, is not a sign that you're breaking. It's a sign that you're individuating. You're not here to be a bottomless well of empathy for everyone else's unhealed pain. You're here to become a whole person, one who can love deeply without abandoning themselves. So as you leave this video, consider a few questions. Where do you still confuse empathy with self-erasure? Where are you calling yourself caring, but actually avoiding your anger or truth? Who in your life benefits from you never having boundaries? And who might you be if you allowed yourself to be more than just the empath? If this spoke to you, you're not alone. There is an entire quiet generation of sensitive people doing this kind of deep inner work, integrating their shadow, reclaiming their power, and learning to love without losing themselves. If you want more content like this, where we bring Jung's insights into real everyday emotional life, you can subscribe, share this with someone who needs it, or drop a comment about which part hit you the hardest. Remember, you are not here to be perfect. You are not here to be endlessly good. You are here to be whole. And a healed empath, messy, complex, powerful, kind, and boundaried, is one of the clearest signs that wholeness is possible. Thanks for watching, and take care of you on your way to taking care of the world.